lies affect the masses. There's no excuse. You've been loosed.
This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in. Come on in here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Janice Pons. I am the host on this show, on this podcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspectives, Spiritual Truths. Now, you know me. We've been flowing together as one. What does that mean? That's what forming a more perfect union means. Us flowing together as one, as we the people, as citizens in the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America, as symbolized by our beautiful flag, our presidential seal, us flowing together under the laws of the Constitution of the United States of America. Listen, we have been on a journey together, and it's been amazing. So, I want to respectfully remind you that in the month of October, we spent an entire month establishing how our nation is set up, laws, order. We don't want chaos. And one way that we establish this order is that we determine that there are 5 pillars in our great nation that help us have order, and our taxpayer dollars go towards supporting those pillars. And I just want to invite you, I don't want to get into the specifics of that so much, the details of that again. I want to invite you to go back and look at episode 136. That's where it's really brought together very succinctly, very tightly, so you can have a good understanding about the undergirding, the supporting, the order of our great nation of certain things that are non-negotiable. It's not even negotiable that those things have to be in place for us to function as an entity in this great nation. So go back and look at episode 136, and you'll see how this is all flowing together and connecting together. But tonight, listen, we're getting ready to start a journey, and I'm telling you right now, put your seatbelt on. Yeah, because we are embarking upon a journey. We're going to take a deep dive because God has shown me some things. I had questions about things, and I'm telling you what, God will reveal things to you if you will seek him, because he has a mind and he will communicate with you and show you things to come, and he will show you the flow of how things are established right now. So right now in our nation, we are under a ferocious attack. We talked about those 5 pillars, and one of our pillars that is under such a targeted, ferocious attack is, of those 5 pillars, the pillar of education. And I'm going to go ahead and come out swinging. And I'm saying nothing but the truth. And you'll see how this is the truth. And we can't change anything unless we identify what's going on. We can't get to where we need to go unless we identify where we are. And I'm going to say this, put your seatbelt on. We need to erase 8 years of Barack Obama's presidency. Uh-oh. There are some people that are going on the defense right now. Now listen, stick with me. We're going somewhere, and it's expecting us when we get there. I am not talking about his presidential years. He was the president of the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America for 8 years. I'm not talking about his presidential years. I'm talking about erasing something that he put into motion that is now on steroids and is having a major impact upon one of the major pillars that our taxpayer dollars, my dollars, your dollars, it supports, and it's the pillar of education. And those, like I said, it's not his presidential years, but we're talking about from 2015 to 2023. This is what Barack Obama did. Now stick with me. He gave authority to a dictatorship that is dictating what is going on in our public schools right now. The dictatorship is so strong and so ferocious is that parents are showing up at school board meetings. They're showing up at schools. There are a lot of conversations going on all over our nation because they are quite concerned and they have reason to be. And we're going to dive into that. What Obama did, he gave authority to the LGBTQ dictatorship of our children's education, and it is now dominating the curriculum and the educational process in our public schools. Yes. So what is that's a strong word, Janice. Yeah, it is. Dictatorship. What does it mean? It means absolute power. It makes all the rules and decisions without input from anyone else, especially those who are going to be affected by it. This dictatorship, that's the definition. Look it up in Webster's. That's the definition of a dictatorship. This dictatorship that we are being confronted with, that is being perpetrated upon families and their children, it has led to a process of indoctrination. What does indoctrination mean? It is the process of teaching a person or a group of people to accept a set of beliefs uncritically. In other words, there is no room for critical thinking. You can't even ask a question. If you do, you might be labeled as an enemy. But let me tell you what, guess what? Our taxpayer dollars are supporting what's going on. This LGBTQ dictatorship of our children's education. So tonight, we're going to be dissecting that. And then from our clinical perspective tonight, we're going to look at the anxiety connection with it all. Because I'm telling you, our children are being traumatized. Stick with me. We're going somewhere. And it's expecting us when we get there. This is what's going on in our schools. So we've established in episode 136, go back and look at it. Our taxpayer dollars are paying for making sure that Social Security retirement benefits will always be there for our elderly. Our military will always be taken care of. Our health, Medicare, healthcare will always be taken care of, and that we as citizens with our taxpayer dollars are paying the interest on our national debt and education. Now, we used to be number one in terms of ranking in the world. Not so much anymore. We're a long way from it. How did we lose the ranking? Let's look at that together. Now, education. We're going to dissect it the whole month of November. You're going to be blown away at some of the things that are just historical facts. This isn't Janice making up anything. It's laid out. Now, right now, our children's education is being dominated by the LGBTQ curriculum, as evidenced by what? Strong words, dominated by. First graders are receiving details on how to masturbate. They are. Pictures and all that our taxpayer dollars are paying for. 11 and 12-year-olds in middle school, they're being given details on something, a dangerous sexual act called fisting. And when I brought that up in conversations, people are like, what's fisting? What do you mean fisting? You see that right there? That's a fist. Ball it up. And they're being taught the specifics of how one takes their fist and enter it into someone else's body. In a sexual practice, and doctors, I've read articles, I've read up on all this. Doctors are saying it is incredibly dangerous, but our taxpayer dollars are paying for our children in the public schools to be instructed on these things. First graders, 11, 12-year-olds, 6-year-olds. True story. This never used to be the case, guys. My fellow Americans, my fellow Christians that I'm addressing tonight. This used to never be the case. It was exposed when children came home and had to be taught from home or learn from home when the schools were shut down during the pandemic. Now, it was going on before then, but they weren't telling the parents what their children were being exposed to in schools. So from 2015 to 2023, their curriculum has been under a dictatorship that is sexually driven. It's progressively gotten worse and worse. And I'm telling you what, it's time for Christians to be heard. It's time for us to stand up as Americans and protect our children. And you know what? Let's go straight to the core. What is that going to look like? What is it going to sound like? I respectfully submit that we have to ask the Supreme Court, which is a branch of our government. We've already talked about the executive branch. We've talked about the legislative branch. And then there is the judicial branch. They work for we the people. We have to ask the Supreme Court to stand up and to protect our children, our posterity, that the preamble of the Constitution that I went over and over again in the month of October, who's going to stand up for our children? If this is not the line of demarcation that's going to be drawn in the sand, what is it going to take? Their minds are being accosted. Their minds are being raped. And I want to know, of the 210 million Christians in this great country, are you concerned? I am. Listen, when gay marriage was passed, it was like, oh, gay marriage. Oh, okay. Now, that would have been one thing. It was like it was passed. But no, here's what happened. From 2015 up to 2023, it took 8 years for the LGBTQ to become a dictator into our children's education. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. It's going on. Parents are in a tailspin about what's going on with their children. Talking about a father was talking about he's got a file that's 4 inches thick of how his son is being indoctrinated in school. Listen, the Supreme Court, we are calling on you. I'm telling you, there's something that happened to our country in 2015. We're calling on the Supreme Court of the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America, the same way that they overturned Roe v. Wade, where millions of our tiny citizens were snuffed out. It was overturned. The Supreme Court overturned affirmative action, and we're asking them to overturn the dictatorship of the LGBTQ curriculum and agenda that's been targeted on our children's backs, as evidenced by what's going on in our children's education. We're asking them to overturn gay marriage. Strong language. Listen, whatever you want to do in private, that's one thing. But when it becomes a part of the public forum and it becomes a part of our children's education in terms of what they're being taught in school and sexual practices, where they're given the details of masturbation and fisting, it's going to a whole other level, and people are concerned. Now, I'm going to tell you, here we go, because from 2015 to 2023, it has been off the charts. It's been off the charts. I'm concerned. I'm concerned as a mother, a potential grandmother. I'm concerned as a citizen. I'm concerned as a minister of the gospel. I'm concerned as a Christian. I'm concerned as an American. Are you concerned? I'm inviting all 210 million Christians to join me, Janice Pons, in a prayer service where we are going to gather on October the 12th, 2024, at the Washington Mall for a day of fasting and prayer. We're going to have a prayer service. We're going to partner with a powerful group of people all over this nation. We are the United Christian Conservative Front. I am leading the way with the United Christian Conservative Front. I'm going to say it again because you're going to hear it more and more. The United Christian Conservative Front. We are joining with the Mordecais and the Esthers. And what they're calling for is 1 million voices arising. But you know what? Janice Pons and From Destruction to Dignity, the United Christian Conservative Front, you know what we're saying? There are 210 million Christians in this great nation. 63% of Americans are Christians. Do you think we have enough to stand up and make a voice loud and clear on October the 12th, 2024, on the Washington Mall and say to our Supreme Court, we've had enough. We've had enough of our children being targeted. Listen, I'm telling you what, the line of demarcation has to be drawn in the sand. It has to be drawn in the sand. Our children's minds are being raped in the public school systems, and our taxpayer dollars are paying for it. But let me tell you something. Be of good cheer. Be of good cheer. History is on our side. I'll show you how. Hold on. Listen, let me lay it out. We're going to frame this thing. Obama violated our system of government in February of 2011. Presidents are a part of the branch of government, which is the executive branch. His job is to uphold the law. That's what presidents do. He's responsible for implementing and enforcing the laws written by Congress. If it's a law, he's supposed to uphold it. This is what his cabinet's supposed to do. Well, watch what happened. We got some powerful history here. Listen to me. Listen to me. In February of 2011, Obama, dictator-in-chief, instructed the Justice Department to stop defending the Defense of Marriage Act, DOMA, D-O-M-A, the Defense of Marriage Act. It was enforced through the Clinton administration, President Bill Clinton. Obama said that, watch this. First, he instructed them, stop defending that. Oh, sir, excuse us, dictator-in-chief. It's a federal law put in place by the legislative branch of our government. But the dictator-in-chief said, Eric Holder, I'm instructing you all. Y'all need to stop defending that. So this is what he said. He believes it is unconstitutional. Oh, really? Sir, it's a law. It was a law. And this is what he said, and I'm quoting. While both the wisdom and legality of DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act, while both the wisdom and legality of DOMA will continue to be the subject of both extensive litigation and public debate, this administration will no longer assess it as being constitutional. We will challenge the constitutionality of it in court. Oh, it's a law though. Congress put it in place. So let's see what he continued to unfold. This is what dictatorships do. They don't ask anybody else. They just say, this is what we're doing. Now, 8 years later, see where we are. So watch what happened in May of 2012. Obama becomes the first president to support same-sex marriage. But he's not the first head of state that did it, guys. We got history on our side. Stick with me. The Supreme Court determined if it's unconstitutional, if something's unconstitutional, the Supreme Court does that, not the president, but the dictator-in-chief, Obama, did. Listen, I'm just repeating what happened. The start of the dictatorship came from him in full force in 2011. When he got up and said, we're not going to defend the federal law. He was not the first head of state to do that, though. Now, we're going to look at a historical flow. In 330 BC, there was a head of state, there was a military leader called Alexander the Great. He was a great military leader of the Greek army in Greece in 330 BC. And let me tell you, what he did was to give authority to, listen, this LGBTQ culture is not new, guys. It's been going on even back to Greece back then. And so you know how it manifested then? Men and boys was a part of the culture and their sexual activity within the military of Alexander the Great. It was called pederasty. Pederasty. P-E-D-E-R-A-S-T-Y. And you know what it's defined as? Sexual relationships between an adult man and a boy. That was the culture. It was prevalent in Greece and Roman culture, so it segued on forward to Julius Caesar. In 220 BC, head of state, he declared He became so emboldened with his beliefs and everything that he did that he was declared a god eventually, whereas the people in Rome would say, "Hail Caesar! Hail Caesar!" He said, you know what he said? He said, "I came, I saw, I conquered." He was a dictator. And during that time, the LGBTQ culture, way of life, that pederasty was still a way of the land in Rome. Well, in line with all these previous heads of state, so was Obama, who empowered the LGBTQ affairs, and he made it a dictatorship in our public schools. Head of state Alexander the Great, head of state Julius Caesar, head of state Barack Obama, same mindset, same agenda. He jump-started it in 2011, and look at where we are in 2015. Once gay marriage became legal in 2015. Look at what's happened in 8 years, guys. So what happened? There was someone that came on the scene. Let me tell you what. Now, listen to this. This is why we got to stand up as Christians, because history is on our side in terms of the people of God taking a stand to protect society, to protect children. And I'm calling on all 210 million Christian Americans for that prayer service and a day of fasting and prayer that we're going to pray for our nation, because 2 Chronicles 7:14, y'all know it. It says, "If my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven. I will forgive their sin and I will heal their land." Do you think our nation needs to be healed? I would say so. History's on our side. Look at what happened back then. In 313 AD, Emperor Constantine showed up. Yeah. Oh boy. Head of state, Emperor Constantine. And he wrote the Edict of Milan. The Edict of Milan, this is what it said. It said that Christianity is the official religion of the Roman Empire. Prior to that, Christians were being persecuted, imprisoned, burned to the stake. Constantine said, no. And so when the Edict of Milan and said Christianity was the official religion of the Roman Empire, all of a sudden morals and values showed up. Oh, we're talking about some accountability. We're talking about some questions being asked. We're talking about pederasty, where men were having sex with boys was no longer going to be accepted in the culture. That was the ruling law of the land. That's what we just did, and you just had to accept it. Constantine showed up. So in 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea was the first council in the history of the Christian church that was intended to address the entire body of believers. Listen, guys, and then it evolved even more where accountability, can you imagine they were on steroids with what these men were doing to those boys? In 370 AD, they were like, wait, stop, what are you doing to these boys? In 370 AD, it came to the point that there was punishment by burning if they were doing that to boys. Listen, we don't want anybody burned. We love our neighbors as we love ourselves. We love our fellow Americans, no matter what their sexual persuasion is. But I'm telling you what, we're quite concerned with this being told to us this year. We're here. We're queer. We're coming for your children. What? We're quite concerned with the North American Man-Boy Love Association having the motto that says sex by 8 or it's too late. What does that translate into? Does that mean you're coming for our boys at a 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? Right now on the legal front, they got lobbyists trying to make pedophilia legal in this country. It's time for us to stand up. Back then, it got to the point that in 400 AD, they were burning people that were pushing pederasty. They stood up and said, you're not going to accost our boys anymore. Guys, we got history on our side. I don't want anybody burned. I love them. I know gay people. I know transgender people. I hug them. I'm like, don't you ever say Janice Pons is homophobia and all that. That's a lie from the pit of hell. They're my fellow Americans, but I tell you what, we want you to take your hands off our children. We don't want our taxpayer dollars supporting this dictatorship that's going on. So guess what? Ha! Oh boy, where are we going to go from here? Because I'm telling you right now, we have history on our side, and we also have something called the Alliance Defending Freedom all over this nation. ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, step aside. The 210 million Christians are here, and we're front and center, and we want to protect our children. And guess what else God did? We have a new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Thank God for this godly man. They're attacking his fundamental Christianity, they say. He was a former attorney with ADF, Alliance Defending Freedom. It is a group of attorneys that are all over this nation. Guys, we've got recourse. We've got people to fight for us. They've already won 14 cases that were before the Supreme Court. Am I talking to somebody right now? We did this mealy mouth thing, sitting around thinking we don't have any power. We got power, and we got history on our side, and it's time for us to stand up. Listen, I'm asking you to join me. I'm asking you to join me. I want the churches, all the churches in America need to show up. We need to show up on the Washington Mall. I'm believing God that we can get Mike Johnson, our new Speaker of the House, to join us as well. He got something to say. Well, he's got to know he's not alone. The Supreme Court needs to hear from us, because from a clinical perspective, let me tell you what's going on. Anxiety is being perpetrated upon our children. What's the main cause of anxiety? Let me spend a few minutes on this. Because this dictatorship of children in our educational system that our taxpayer dollars are paying for, we're tired of it. History is on our side. What's the main cause of anxiety? It's difficult experiences in childhood, school age, and it goes into adolescence, it goes into adulthood, and they're common triggers that cause anxiety problems. Going through stress, trauma. When you're young, it impacts you. It impacts your soul, your mind, your will, your emotions, your intellect, your drive, your desires, and you get triggered. So let's say if you've been molested, I went through therapy to get healed. And it establishes anxiety in your soul. You don't know what to do. And so when you hear certain words, when you see certain images, it triggers you right back into it. So they're showing up in school, watching naked men in books that our taxpayer dollars are paying for. You know what's happening? They're being re-traumatized. They're being re-traumatized Monday through Friday. Now that's Janice's clinical mind talking, but Janice is begging you, as your fellow American, as your fellow Christian, my fellow Christians, we got to stand up. This dictatorship has got to stop. We've got to make a loud voice, loud and clear, to our Supreme Court to say, History's on our side. Just like Constantine stood up, we need to stand up. We need to stand up with our Speaker of the House. He put a bill that he couldn't even get out of committee. I'll talk about that later. We're going to dissect some legislative things that they've tried to shut down. But God is on our side. And I say that dictator-in-chief Obama, he violated the laws of the land in February of 2011 when he said, we're not going to defend a federal law. Let's go back and pick it up from there. Yeah. Listen, we've set up our kids with all this anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, where these symptoms have to be going on for 6 months, irritability, sleep disturbance. If you've been molested, you're going to have these things going on. Agoraphobia, where you're scared to be in enclosed places, but when you've had trauma perpetrated upon you, you will be vulnerable for that. Panic disorders, listen, social anxiety, a separation anxiety. Why? Because they're being accosted. Listen, what have we talked about tonight? We've been talking about the LGBTQ dictatorship of our children's education. We've laid it out historically. We've laid out exactly what's happened in the history of our nation. And look, what are we talking about? It evokes anxiety. So look, guys, we got to protect our children. They need us. They got to have a voice. The line of demarcation has to be drawn in the sand because we're going to take them from destruction to dignity. We've got to protect them the whole month of November. We're going to dissect this thing. I'll see you the next time. Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.
Education, affirmation, dedication, information, revelation. A new nation. We are God empowered. Strength is ours. Liberty. Been set free. Education, affirmation, dedication.